Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee,
Hey, how's it going?
Jane Belcastro,
Hello.
Matt Wagner,
It's Wagner.
and Jenner.
And Jenner.
This time we're checking out the Sam Raimi Western, The Quick and the Dead, starring Sharon Stone and Gene Hackman, as well as a long list of fun names. But first we're going to talk a little bit about the Western as a genre. And that's a pretty wide range of stuff we can talk about, because that would include everything from the Magnificent Seven to everything that that Kurosawa ever did.
Yeah, I mean, if you expand the concept of the Western beyond the American West, then it ends up incorporating a lot of other stuff. Like Australian Westerns are kind of their own thing. The Japanese samurai film could be argued as a parallel equivalent. Yeah, as you said, Kurosawa obtains if you erase the national line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
This was your idea. I'm just trying to help.
No, I was thinking a lot about different Westerns that I've enjoyed over the years, and I found a lot of them tend to be on the goofier side. And one of them that I thought of was a Prohibition era Western, kind of, which was a remake of Yojimbo.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, with Last Man Standing.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I was
okay.
actually tempted to rewatch that last night after we saw The Quick and the Dead as well. But
Yeah.
I've seen so many different adaptations of The Glass Key by Dashiell Hammett that I didn't figure that I needed to readdress that one directly.
No, it's not nothing monumental, but I had a lot of fun.
It's a good little movie. It's crackerjack.
I didn't know what it was when I went into it, and I saw it in the theater, and when it clicked within like 15 minutes that it was that story again, I got pretty excited. I was really
oh, wait,
happy.
I know this story.
Yeah.
I mean that one's an interesting hybrid of Western and gangster film, which is not a thing that happens very often.
Yeah. I tend
But,
to
yeah,
like
no,
the Western when it kind of
hybridizes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The primacy of Westerns as a genre is one of those things that had pretty much run its course even by the time that Jane was born.
Whoa.
Wow, thanks.
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
What have you done?
I should. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. Just pick
but-
on the oldest member here. Just,
For what it's worth, you're aging a lot better than I am. But
I don't know about that, but maybe on the outside. How about that?
yeah, I mean, I mean. Anyway, I should probably shut the hell up.
Any rate,
Well, you mentioned goofball westerns. I think
goofball one.
if I had one, it would be Frisco Kid.
Oh yeah.
I love
Underrated
that.
movie.
I
Absolutely
love
an,
that
under,
movie.
an underrated movie. A lot of fun. I mean,
Mm.
Gene Wilder and Harrison Ford is a comic pairing that. Well, I mean, realistically, anybody who's paid attention. I mean, they were both relatively early in their careers, but anybody who's paid attention since then should say, "Oh yeah, no, that was a slam dunk for an Odd Couple pairing."
Mhm.
But again, a film that did not get even particularly good reviews at the time. But yeah, no, an underappreciated movie.
I mean, speaking of goofball westerns, I went into this movie expecting a kids movie, and it kind of is, but Rango turned out to be an actual
Oh.
western when I watched it. There's a reference
Yeah.
to Apocalypse Now in it. I mean,
Yeah.
as well.
Well, there's a reference, not just a reference, but a straight up cameo of Hunter S. Thompson in it too. If
Yeah.
you remember the windshield at the beginning. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in Rango that the target audience is not old enough to have actually known what it was talking about.
It's the perfect family film in that I can enjoy it just as much as the kids can.
It's a
Mhm.
really good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I think western might be my favorite genre, but it's one that I haven't seen enough of. I mean, I've gone back and watched the classics, the John Ford stuff. I remember watching Stagecoach last year and realizing during the action scenes, during the chase scenes, I'm like, this is Raiders of the Lost Ark. He lifted his chase scenes from Raiders directly from Stagecoach.
See, your comment there sort of leads into mine. I have a kind of odd relationship with westerns in that I understand their primacy. I understand they're setting the basis for practically all of film that came afterwards in one way or another. But my knowledge of westerns is almost limited to the really like exceptionally lauded ones, which all seem to be about the death of the West. So I've only Death of the West and the Death of the Western. So I've only seen the great westerns that bemoan the loss of something I didn't know.
The
So it's-
diminishing frontier.
yeah, but it's also like controverting the tropes. So when they talk about westerns as being, oh, white hat versus black hat, I'm like, every western I've seen, the good guy wears a black hat. And I've seen like Once Upon a Time in America. I've seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
You mean Once Upon a Time in the West?
Yeah, in the West.
Yeah,
I'm
Once
sorry.
Upon a Time in America
is the gangster film.
Yeah. Greatest frickin' gangster movie ever made.
Which is another one on my pile.
It's on my pile
Yeah.
as well.
We'll write it down.
It's a long one. So.
But now, Once Upon a Time in the West is absolutely worth talking about as well as being kind of the quintessential hybridization of the American Western and the spaghetti Western in the hands of the absolute master of the spaghetti Western.
And it is again about the death of the West with the coming of the railroad, sort of destroying the Wild West, the frontier aspect of things.
I mean, Henry Fonda was the villain. It was a very revisionist picture.
Yes.
And one of the absolute coldest peckered villains of all time. So, yeah. And Charles Bronson and Jason Robards are the heroes, and they were great. That movie is so freaking good.
It is extremely good, and I loved every minute of it. I watched it 2 or 3 times with all the commentary tracks and everything. But it's like I have only seen, if you got a box set together of the greatest westerns, I've only seen that, and I'm aware that means I've seen supposedly the greatest, but I don't have any depth.
I was going to say, have you not seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
I have seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
So
I've seen For a Fistful of Dollars. I haven't seen Hang 'em High.
Oh, so you haven't seen the middle? You haven't seen For a Few Dollars More?
I think For a Few Dollars More is actually
That's
really underrated, not least because Lee Van Cleef was actually the hero in that one, and then, of course, they turned around to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, played a completely different character, and he was another one of the coldest peckered villains.
Yeah, see, I watched all 3 of those movies in a row, and I thought they were all the same characters. So when I got to the third one, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Lee Van Cleef's character showed up. I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. Oh, wait, this guy's a complete bastard. What is going on here?
We're used to a much later, much more Americanized idea of the way series work.
Yep.
Not just the same cast in similarly themed movie, that doesn't mean they're the same people. And but I mean, if we want to talk, swing way back to like Goofball, I mean, of course everyone here knows Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
As possibly
Brilliant
one of the
film.
greatest westerns and commentaries on westerns ever made.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go far enough back, as far as not necessarily parodic westerns, but funny westerns, Jimmy Stewart and Marlena Dietrich in Destry Rides Again are. That movie was fantastic. That's one of the movies that made me think for a while that maybe I ought to give American westerns a shot.
My father-in-law is a huge fan of westerns, but does not like the spaghetti western. So he is actually the classic western guy, and I saw McClintock with him, as well as a handful of others.
McClintock is a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, but it is also an introduction to what would probably be considered like the western before we controverted the tropes, before we started reversing things, before every western was about the death of the West.
Yeah, that was very late high era.
Yeah, it's I feel like the only way I could actually get the depth on the genre that I kind of want in order to properly appreciate everything that came after was to watch 40 Years of Gunsmoke. Or Bonanza, or I mean, there's so much history. This was a
don't-
genre that
Don't go
dominated
for Branded
everything.
because Branded would fall on the other side of that Rubicon.
What about the original Maverick? Because I've seen the movie that took the gangster gamble not gangster the gunsman gambler character, and I understand originally it was kind of a parody even during the high era of things.
Not so
of
much
the
parody, but
Western.
funny.
But funny within it.
Sort of in the way that we can acknowledge that there are non-parodic, funny horror movies or science fiction movies. I mean, there are non-parodic, funny westerns as well. I think Maverick is actually a good example of that, both in the original series, which I've seen very little of, but a little of, but also the movie, which I actually liked a lot, even if I thought it was maybe like 15, 20 minutes too long. Granted, it's been forever since I've seen that one as well.
I loved that movie when it came out because I also liked that team.
Yeah.
I love the characters and I love the story in that one when I did see it. Sorry, go ahead, Bezos.
God, who the hell directed it?
Donner?
Richard Donner.
Donner, thank you. Yeah.
Oh,
I love Richard Donner.
Yeah.
So big fan there, and I liked the connection to the TV show or to the the TV show that they had.
Garner.
Yeah, that they had within the movie itself. It was nice. It was a well done little film.
And I still find it's an astonishingly weird thing to say, given that Mel Gibson is Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster is gay as fuck, but the chemistry between Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster is just amazing.
they are actors.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
and-
no,
and-
by all accounts, they're pals in real life.
Yeah, they
Recall
would, like,
that she
she-
got
she was
him
behind
for
them,
the beaver.
yeah, she was behind him even through all the the really nasty stuff that came up past decade. They've been friends the whole time. So.
So what is your feeling, again, calling back to the genre in general? My understanding is that Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch was a major turning point from the classic era to the sort of destruction of the Western genre. Not destruction, but controverting the tropes, understanding that it was a much nastier world than perhaps was in the more idealized classic era of Westerns. What's your take on that?
I'll pretty much agree with that. The Wild Bunch is very much, at least as far as the American Western goes. Peckinpah's work just in general was kind of the turning point between the celebration of the West and the end of the West. I mean,
end of the celebration of the West.
Exactly. It's telling that Peckinpah's Western follow-up to that was Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which is in any of its restored versions, but not particularly in its theatrical version, essentially an extended eulogy for both the West and the myth of the American West, as well as the American Western film in its own right. I mean, at the same time, you were getting things like Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which were just completely deconstructing sort of the classical tropes of the genre. So yeah, the Western Bunch was the pivot point. Sorry, did I say the Western Bunch? Yeah, the Wild Bunch was absolutely kind of the absolute turning point between classical American Westerns and either elegiac American Westerns, or in a broader sense, the things that subsequently turned around to pastiches. Yeah, it was one of those points where you can say that it divided the genre, or at least the genre as it pertained to American cinema, in two. There was a before the Wild Bunch, and there was an after the Wild Bunch.
Which is interesting too, because from plot perspective, the Wild Bunch takes place mostly in Mexico, which you don't generally, if I remember correctly.
Quite a lot. No, I mean quite a lot of westerns. Westerns do, especially the
even in the classic
ones.
era.
Oh, yeah.
Not so much in the classic era.
Do they? I don't know. This is my ignorance showing.
There's some examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are a couple.
My ignorance showing then.
No, the West was a broad frontier.
So Shane, you mentioned that this is probably your favorite genre. Why is that?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I just always, and for me, when I think of the Western, I'm thinking of like the classic. Well, I'm thinking of the American Western, not necessarily the classic
You're
American
thinking of the
Western.
odor.
The what?
The
what?
odor.
Oter. What
I
is
don't know
that?
what that is.
Oats and sagebrush and yeah.
An
Are
oter, I guess
Okay.
OATER.
OATER.
Huh. Don't know that.
I've never heard
I
that
don't
term
know
before.
that either.
Basically, the sort of the programmatic American Western. Going back to the silent era up well into the John Ford years.
Okay, I mean, yeah, for me, it's the aesthetic. I think is a big part of it. I really don't know why, because by and large, the Western aesthetic is brown and dusty, and but
Unpleasant.
unpleasant. Yeah, but there's something about it that's always felt like comforting to me in an odd way, which I can't even think back to what my first Western was, or why I've always gravitated towards it. I do remember seeing two Mules for Sister Sarah when I was very young. That's maybe one of the, other than the Leone movies, that's maybe one of the only Clint Eastwood westerns I've seen, and I just remember being fascinated by it. And I just like the dusty colors and sort of the mood, and I like the hero iconography of a lot of the more classic westerns. That's something that's not necessarily the most interesting, especially since, as you guys talked about, the Wild Bunch kind of blew all that to hell.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's
Almost literally at the end of that movie.
yeah.
So which films do you go back to when you think I'd like to watch a Western? What would you go back to?
For me, I do go to the Leone trilogy a lot. Um, there's a movie that came out in the early 2000s that not a lot of people saw. It was a movie, I think it was directed by Kevin Costner. It was starring Kevin Costner, Robert
Open
Duvall,
Range?
called Open Range. Yeah, that I
Yep.
really
Yeah.
liked. Um,
That
Well-
one that has a particularly nasty gunfight at the end.
I
Largely
love
for
the
its
gunfight.
brutality and finality.
Right,
Yeah.
and like not a lot happens up until that gunfight. I mean, it's
Mhm.
a lot of character work and a lot of setup. Oh, you know what it was? I think that might have triggered this fascination with westerns. Is when I was a kid, my my friend's mom took us all to see Dances with Wolves, which I haven't seen since then.
I have to allow. I saw that like 9 times in the theater. That was
Aw.
Oh shit, that's a lot of movie. It's like a
Yeah,
3.5
no,
hour
it's-
movie.
it was a period. I mean, this was right after I started, or either right after or right before I started driving. But for that summer, my brother would cheerfully drive me around a lot of the time, and there was a period where it's just when nothing else was going on, kind of like in 1995 when The Usual Suspects came out. It's like nothing else going on. Let's go watch. Well, in 1991, it was Dances with Wolves.
Mhm.
Saw
It
that
would
a lot.
definitely be in a theater somewhere.
Yeah,
Probably
exactly.
starting
Yeah.
soon.
I don't know how well that movie's aged, but I mean James Cameron remade it and is remaking it 5 more times. So
Dances with Smurfs.
Son of a bitch!
I love South Park. Anyway.
No, I have not felt much inclination to revisit Dances with Wolves, but the Western definitely gets its resurgences from time to time. The one that from around that time that sticks with me a lot more was Unforgiven.
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, I saw
As
that
an
one early
eulogy for
too.
both the American and the Italian Western. It was, it was dedicated to Don Siegel and Sergio Leone, who of course were kind of Eastwood's two sort of cinematic fathers. It has enjoyed a bit of a resurgence in the latter video on demand era, particularly. I went on about this at some length, although not much lately on Bastards. That prior to the late unpleasantness, video on demand had remarkably freed up a lot of money for sort of more marginal pictures that weren't able to pull off a tentpole status. So it was a golden era around the middle of the last decade for not just low to medium budget horror movies, science fiction pictures, but also westerns experienced some of the joy of that as well. The teens were a very, very good decade for relatively low budget westerns. I just saw a fantastic one last night, actually. Although I don't know. I don't think it was necessarily as good as I enjoyed it, so to speak. Is a movie called Cowboys versus Zombies, aka The Devil's Crossing, which I think I mostly loved because I adore, like on a personal basis, about half of the people who are in that movie, as well as its director of photography. So if you're feeling adventurous, definitely give that a look. You can probably find it for about $1.25 at your local Dollar Tree, but I had a very good time watching it yesterday evening.
I need to get a copy. I've never seen it. I need to get a copy of that.
I've
I wonder
never
if it's
seen it.
I
available
still
online.
haven't seen it, so
I didn't know you were in it, Nate. I knew
Yeah.
you shot the damn thing.
Wait, you're in it?
Yeah.
Well, shit. Now let's
Nate
move to the
man.
credits.
and Don and Alex and Corinne,
Wait, I wonder if it's on Amazon.
a bunch of people I hug every time I see them in person are in this movie.
Is it the one starring Michael Sharp?
Yeah.
It's currently unavailable on Prime, but let's see if I. Ooh, there's a DVD for $8. All right, it's
Ooh.
mine.
$8,
There you
a relative bargain.
Oh, one in stock. That's mine.
go. There you
I'm ordering
go.
it right now.
No, it
There
was
you go.
actually better than you had led me to expect it to be. It's
I have some foul memories of the shoot, but I've never seen the final product. I don't know what the movie ended up being like.
Oh my
it's
god.
not bad.
Is there a way we could
I-
do some sort of a watch along?
Hell
That
yeah.
would make an amazing episode.
I think that would be probably a bit more of a Twitch problem than a YouTube problem.
That's
but,
what I was
yeah,
thinking.
No, we can do it on Discord or something. It's not that
you
hard.
could do it.
Yeah.
I know, it's just a thought. But no, I actually had a lot of fun watching it, not least for
Wow.
affection for the persons involved. So,
Didn't.
Anyway.
I actually intended to watch that as well, but I got sidetracked.
That's okay. I don't mind.
It will
Put it
get
on the
watched,
pile.
Don't worry.
Yeah, put
Totally
it
do
on
an
the
episode.
pile. I
Yeah,
haven't
well,
seen
maybe
it.
we-
That would, really, the four of us have not
Mhm.
seen it,
Yeah.
even though one of us worked on it.
We could have some
and
behind the
not the
scenes
one who
commentary.
saw it.
Yeah, and he hasn't even seen it, so.
Oh.
Now, like I say, guardedly recommended to the adventurous. It's not anything terribly monumental, but it hit at a good time.
Mhm.
The retitling, of course, was to cash in on the basically non-existent success of Cowboys versus Aliens.
Oof.
So
Yeah, man.
it was not originally in mockbuster territory, but it got shoveled over. But the point is, there was a lot of Western activity around for a goodly chunk of last decade.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
because, my favorite Western?
That.
Firefly.
I love that one too. I mean,
Again, very much getting
I
back into sort
know.
of the hybridization.
I mean, if I
of
had to
things.
say, like I like the television shows like, Deadwood and
Mm.
Yeah, Deadwood's
which I
great.
love and
Firefly.
have never
and
finished.
Westworld was fantastic. I mean, the first whole the first season was entirely Western.
My impression of Deadwood is that it was one of those series that was absolutely excellent and then was forced to wrap things up a little too
Yeah.
quickly. Am I wrong?
And
Yes,
they-
and then they
so.
did a movie,
Movie,
and
yeah.
it came out like last year, and it helped.
So
it didn't
was,
really like
It was the
you
Farscape
know,
phenomenon.
it didn't finish off the Hearst
Mm.
Yeah.
bit, but that's okay. They just, I guess, apparently he went away and didn't do anything bad to them as they had threatened.
He found
But,
something better to do.
So
yeah,
like,
yeah,
so
Deadwood
like,
was like the first of those really hyper violent, filthy,
Mm.
nude, like everything in it is just, every curse word, every sex act, everything they can get in there. It was sort of the shock drama. Wasn't that the start of it? I mean, I just seem to
Yeah.
remember a bunch
certainly in the television
of my husband's friends going, "That thing is the best," and I was like, "Okay, I'll watch it someday."
Certainly
and
in
I
a
did.
cable context.
so with
Yeah.
so with the Deadwood movie, I do have a question about it. So it does take place like 10, 15 years later, right? And
Yeah.
in that powder keg of a town, everyone is just still alive like 15 years later, and just
Not everybody,
kind
but
of
a
carrying
lot.
on.
Right, they
Yeah,
put it
they-
on pause.
Where are they now?
I just remember there was a parody bit. I can't remember what group did it, but there was a parody bit where it was, "It's not porn, it's HBO."
Exactly. And now all the shows are like that. I mean, especially
Mm.
like, even like Game of
Game of
Thrones,
Thrones.
and Westworld and everything. I mean, it sort of set the tone, and
Mhm.
it was a Western. So yeah,
Yeah, I was a
Who
big
cut
fan
the
too.
cheese?
who cut the cheese? Yeah, I know that.
No,
I
you-
love
Will
Ian
Swearingen
McShane.
is a fucking icon.
I know
Yeah.
Ian McShane is the best. So except in American Gods, but hey,
Well, no, two of the seasons, or one of the seasons of American Gods was really, really terrific. The
Yeah, it
second
was.
season of American Gods was okay. The third season, you remember how angry the third season of American Gods made.
Yeah, it made me furious.
What
I
did it
hated
do?
So it just sucked.
It-
I mean, they
it-
Well, see, you
diverged
say
from
that, and now I'm
the.
fascinated.
It didn't do
diverged from the
anything
original.
until it manufactured a cliffhanger that it is
Yeah,
unlikely to recover from by virtue of the third season frickin' sucked.
It diverged from the book way too much. It decided that maybe it could preach a little harder, which okay, but that's not what the original book was about. It was a little bit about that, but
Basically,
not.
it ends in a moment of
And it
complete
just.
bastardy with no expectation of recovery because they aren't going to
Yeah.
follow up on the on the cliffhanger.
They like added all these extra side stories that just didn't fit.
There
I
was
mean,
Nothing
a-
freaking happened in the season that was of any consequence whatsoever.
There was
yeah.
an
Until they screwed up the ending.
We should probably get back to the topic at hand.
sorry.
There are a
Yes,
couple.
we should. Oops,
Yeah.
westerns.
There are
Well,
a
I mean,
couple
to some
of,
extent, American Gods is a rumination on sort of the metaphysical American.
but let's talk
frontier.
about some actual westerns.
Yep.
My go-tos for the genre, other than Kurosawa, would be the Outlaw Josie Wales and the evergreen Tombstone.
Tombstone.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
great
that was my
film.
brother's
I've
favorite
never seen
film. He
Tombstone
loved that.
actually.
Oh,
Oh.
good.
And I know it's on
Oh.
Netflix. I've been meaning to watch it for so long.
It's so entertaining. It
That's-
really is. You should. It's so quotable. It's like infinitely quotable. It's like one of those-
Tombstone is one of very few westerns that can match the movie we're going to discuss in the second half in terms of the sheer collection of impressive that guys that they managed to cram into the movie.
Yeah.
No, Tombstone is a legit masterpiece, and its reputation just grows year over year at this point.
No, I'm a big fan of that movie. It's
Oh yeah.
there's a scene in that movie where a character passes away. I will not say anything more than that, Shane, because I want you to
Okay.
see it. But it was one of the first times that I just openly cried in a theater.
Oh,
And I will always remember that as a movie that drove me to emotion. And I think that's the best thing that a movie can do is drive somebody to an emotional response.
Oh,
That's what they're meant
I,
to do.
I just remembered the westerns as a kid that got me really into westerns, and this is kind of embarrassing. It's the Young Guns movies. I
Oh, yeah,
loved
no,
those
that's
movies as a kid.
fine. Those were
Those
so
I
entertaining.
became obsessed with westerns after watching Young Guns 1 and 2.
I thought you were about to say Five Will Goes West,
Oh, that's a good one too.
which is honestly is not a bad cartoon either. But go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, also part of that was Bon Jovi did the soundtrack for Part 2, and that was Blaze of Glory was heavily in rotation on MTV,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just remember and I think Billy the Kid was like the coolest character, and yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about those movies other than they're a blast. It's been a while since I've watched them, but
I have
just
never
adored those
actually
movies.
seen them, believe it or not.
Really?
I mean, they're
oh,
they're
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 good
fun.
fun.
They're
It was one
fun.
of the-
I've seen them in pieces.
No, they're a lot of fun. Great cast.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah,
great
basically some Brat Packers in
people. Lou
it.
Diamond Phillips.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen.
The thing about westerns in my case is, as you're well aware, I'm mostly a horror SF buff. So if a western ends up on my get around to it pile, it is more likely than most other genres of movie to stay there.
Yeah. My go-to would have to be Unforgiven, which I know is I mean it's pretty much a given. That's one of those movies that a lot of people will say, if it's on, you sit down and watch the whole thing. My favorite point of that film, though, is actually a very small moment when Gene Hackman is talking. It is Hackman, right? I'm not remembering.
The villain, yes.
Yes. Where he's in the house he's in his own house talking to the reporter who's taking all these notes and fictionalizing the events of the West, and the house keeps leaking all over the place. And I can't remember exactly what the line was, but the reporter makes some comment about he should fire your carpenter, and he says, "I built this house." And that moment was so revelatory to the rest of the film. It was one of those moments in film where I'm like, this is what a metaphor is.
Well, I mean, Hackman between Unforgiven and I should probably save this for the second half, but Hackman was sort of a latecomer to the Western genre,
but he made it his own.
He made it his own, and in some very interesting and interestingly contrasting ways.
Unless we consider Bonnie and Clyde a Western.
True.
Again, one of those points where the just the setting crosses over with again could be argued as a crossover between the gangster and the gangster movie and the Western.
Yeah.
Is if you're a gangster and it's dry enough, you may be in a Western as well.
Well, to that point, for some reason I was sitting here thinking, what is that moment that I've been thinking? Oh, I was thinking about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which is kind of a Western in points.
It kind of it
is. Babyface Nelson showing up and being a straight up bank robber, sort of at the end of the era. But I mean, the Coen
even though
brothers,
it's in Mississippi, but yeah.
I mean, strictly speaking, the Southern is not exactly a subgenre.
Foreign territory, yeah.
You know, actually, if you want to go in that
Southern
direction,
Gothic is, but that's not exactly what we're talking about there.
Wasn't it the Coen brothers that also did the Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
That's exactly what I was
because
going
that is on Netflix right now, and I showed it to my dad, who is an actual cattle rancher in Wyoming. So he loved it.
Well, the Coen brothers love their American genres just in general.
Yeah. So I highly recommend it, but this is a movie made to hurt you.
Yeah, it's a dark one.
It is going to basically give you characters that you're going to care about.
I think
and it's going to do bad things to them.
So it's a Coen brothers movie.
Yeah. One story in there ended positively for the character in it, and I won't say which one.
Yeah.
But I was
so
happy.
Which I think was my father's favorite one, actually.
Yeah, I was so happy when that one character actually, everything worked out for him. He had worked hard towards something, somebody had tried to take it from him, and nope, he won in the end. I was so happy for that one.
What did he call him?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it
I can't
either
remember
yet.
the word. No, he had this curse word he called him
that
was great.
That will just hover for you all as you
all
watch
right.
the movie.
Really good.
All right. Well, on that, why don't we go ahead and take our break? We'll be right back. And we're back. Next up, we'll be talking about The Quick and the Dead, Sam Raimi's goofball western starring Gene Hackman, Russell Crowe, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobin Bell, Keith David, Lance Henriksen, Pat Ingalls, Gary Sinise, Mark Boone Jr. This is a big cast of cult figures
Strode,
and that guys. Yeah.
Sven
and apparently
Ole Thorsen.
Bruce Campbell. Yeah, Bruce Campbell was credited, but
Yeah, he was not. He was cut.
He was cut out
the
of the
wedding Shemp did not appear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead.
All gathered under producer Sharon Stone, who also stars. The Quick and the Dead tells the story of a quick draw contest in the town of Redemption, ruled with an iron thumb by Herod, played by Gene Hackman. Each character has their own mysterious motivation for being in the contest, but the lady, played by Sharon Stone, is the most mysterious of all. There's one thing I want to say before we get into it. The one thing that makes me sad about this movie is that they gave her a name. I like that they called her the lady, and I wanted to see her credited as the lady.
Okay, I had a question about that because she gets a name in the credits. That's only in the credits, right? I didn't miss.
No, they say Ellen. They call her
they say-
Ellen.
Russell Crowe says it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Russell
it
Crowe
first
says
turns up about 2/3 of the way through the movie.
I missed it. I thought she was lady. Then I saw the credits. I'm like, wait. I thought it would have been cool if they never said her name, but they gave her a name in the credits.
She should have been the woman with no name, but yeah.
To me, this is the most undiluted Sam Raimi film ever made. I think it's where he was given carte blanche to do his style by Sharon Stone, who loves the Evil Dead movies, and she just was like, "What happens if we give Sam Raimi a bunch of money and no studio interference? What does it look like?"
Whatever it looked like, they cut 20 minutes out of it before they released the thing, including a number of shots that actually turned up in the trailer. Not least more of a romantic subplot between her and Russell Crowe, himself making one of his first U.S. films as well.
I mean, let's be
So-
real. The star of the movie was Russell Crowe's hair.
Yeah, yes.
I could not keep my eyes off of that hair.
It was
Yes.
I
great.
was like, even
So
when he's,
in-
he's like writhing around on the ground in the middle of town, raises his head, just perfectly disheveled.
He
Yeah.
he was a pretty fucking man in 1995.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I still
he
remember
was, yeah.
I saw this in the theater when it was originally released, not least because, I mean, it was Raimi's first film after Army of Darkness. I was wondering where he was going to go from there. And it did not really hit me the first time. It left me a bit lukewarm. As it turned out, I really, really liked it on second viewing. Not least for being a sort of an outlier as far as the pastiche westerns, going back to what you were saying earlier, Matt, in that it is not a Death of the West movie, except insofar as it's a western movie about people making each other dead, which is realistically most westerns.
Yeah.
But no, I had a ton of fun on repeat viewing. It's just Sharon Stone is incredibly mediocre in this
Oh
movie.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
not very
But
good.
she paid for
She
it.
is. I mean,
Okay.
it is to her credit, I suppose,
I
that the
thought
movie
she was
exists
fine.
at all. She was aiming for sort of a star vehicle, and to kind of like at that point, I think I want to say like her third attempt at career reinvention after Basic Instinct.
Okay.
You know, in as many years. But at the same time, she is. You know that phrase I'm so fond of, the vacuum at the center of the vortex. She is
Yeah.
surrounded by the most amazing collection of character actors, who are all of them having the freaking time of their lives. And she's struggling desperately to emote through, I'd say, about 3/4 of the movie.
I
It
would,
looks like if you said the wrong thing to her, she was going to start crying.
I would say she embodies the cliche that she can walk the walk, but she can't talk the talk. The way she carries herself, her body language, was good. Every time she opened her mouth, it was like, "Are you even here today?" Like,
She knew
I
the
know-
words, but not the music.
I know she was trying to be like stoic and badass, but she just came off sleepy or
She
or
came
checked
off
out.
blubbery.
Okay. So
I would say
I have
flat.
to.
Yeah, Matt.
I have to throw back to what will sound like for a moment like a non sequitur, but back in the 90s, there was an episode of Freakazoid in which Freakazoid, through time travel stuff, ends up over the Pacific, and he actually prevents the occurrence of Pearl Harbor. He then comes back to modern day, and he discovers the little ways in which this has changed history and changed the modern day. One of which is him sitting in a theater that's the placard outside says Macbeth starring Sharon Stone. And midway through he goes, "She can act! Sharon Stone can act!" as one of the great butterfly moments of him stopping Pearl Harbor.
Well, it was a couple of years. It was a year or two after this that she did end up, I think, fairly deservedly getting an Oscar nomination, not a win, also deservedly, for Casino.
For Casino.
Yeah.
She can act, but as I said to Jane last night, she is an actor who should be wielded tactically, not strategically.
And I actually kind of disagreed with all of this. Look, I just thought she did fine. I know that she was a little wooden, but that was just it. They explained that her whole character was that she was just dead already. That when her father died, when her father died, we won't go into it beyond that, she stopped living. And Russell Crowe wanted her to get her life back. And so did, the old man who
Robert's Blossom.
Yeah, and she,
Thank you.
Whose last
And so
theatrical
I
release
just
this
took
was.
it that was what it was. She was constantly hungover the character was constantly hungover and didn't give a shit. And I thought that was sort of how she was playing it, and I was fine with it. And I thought, well, first of all, she looks great. I mean, she looks
She does
great.
look great.
Yeah, she looks the part.
She has just the right amount of sun damage and.
I would
And
say
those
she
leather
looks a
pants
little
probably
too-
smelled terrible and were a bad hygiene option, but she went for it. She wore them. Anyway, I thought she was fine. Better than fine. I thought that it worked. It worked for me. And then I did ask Jenna, who do you think should have starred in it?
Madeline Stowe.
So,
Of course,
anybody else got any
she
other
did
options?
Bad Girls.
She
right?
did Bad Girls around the
Yeah.
same time, so she was probably westerned out at that point. But
Yeah.
Stowe would have made as much of a meal of this movie as any of the actors surrounding Stone did in this.
There's a kind
but
of
she wouldn't have paid for it.
But she wouldn't have paid for it.
Yeah.
there's a kind of goofiness to her performance in that she is trying so hard to be stoic, and it just comes off as flat and
Well,
and,
the whole thing is so heightened. I mean, it kind of fits in there.
yeah,
it's-
that's where I'm going. That's it's very Raimi-esque in that everything is kind of surface level and a lot of fun. I don't need a great performance out of the character. I just don't.
Not that one. Not that one.
She looks fucking amazing in it. Like when she comes out at the end and her hair is like tousled and coming down, and she's like, "I'm the badass." That's great. Visually,
How about
that
when
is a
she
great
wakes up
moment.
on those barrels of dynamite?
Yeah.
Come on. I am as straight as a woman can possibly be, and I was like, "Damn!" yeah. I mean, when that gown almost fell over and gave a Basic Instinct moment, I was like, "What? What?" So she did fine.
Do you know what this
She did
movie?
just fine.
You know what this movie really reminded me of? It reminded me of anime. It reminded me of a fighting anime.
Yes.
Every fighting
Absolutely.
anime ends up in a tournament, and you have a colorful cast of characters. You've got the card guy, the Lance Henriksen card guy. You got the big guy covered with scars. You've got the kid. Like all of these are anime
Keith
tropes.
David and his pipe.
Yeah,
That
Keith David,
pipe.
all
oh
of these
my
are
God.
fighting anime characters, and the fact that they're
So
literally in a
Thorson.
tournament together.
A
just felt like-
self-described
felt 90s to me.
gentleman adventurer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I
And he
I
owns
really
it.
enjoyed this movie. It
Yeah.
it
I
wasn't what
enjoyed
I
it
was
a lot.
expecting. I mean,
The fastest gun in Sweden.
Nate told me going into it that the camera work was hilarious, and I didn't know what to make of that until I saw the
The
movie.
zooming in on the eyes,
Yeah,
constant
I
zoom.
have-
Those snap
I-
zooms are a character in their own right.
Yeah.
I have the perfect example. I went into this movie entirely blind. All I knew about it was a Western. It was Sam Raimi, and Nate said that it contains some of the most Sam Raimi-esque camera work he's ever seen. And it starts out, and we have, just like a minute in, we have that long shot of Sharon Stone riding in from the far distance. And I'm like, this is a Western. And then Tobin Bell's head comes up with that buck-toothed face in extreme close-up. And I'm like, this is a Sam Raimi Western.
That reaction I had in the theater as well. I had forgotten how much fun the camera work and the editing were. Or it just hadn't struck me as much when I saw it in the theater because I hadn't seen this since then. Despite having handily picked up a DVD twofer of this and Silverado for like $4 at Big Lots a couple of years ago. But no, this has significantly improved in my estimation over my first viewing of it. Not least for the ability to watch Gene Hackman's performance in this with a greater time divorce from his performance in Unforgiven. Which was only 3 years earlier, but that movie having hit as hard as it did at the time, I think set me up a little bit of a false expectation of how things were going to go in this. Because in Unforgiven, Hackman's character was ostensibly the villain of the picture, but he was still, very human, very relatable. I still love his last line, before Clint Eastwood shoots him. I'm building a house, which was achingly poignant in that film. And in this, he shows up and he starts devouring the scenery from frame one. Not having Unforgiven as freshly in mind on this viewing, I was able to enjoy his performance a lot more since it doesn't seem nearly as one note by comparison. In this one, he is doing... If Gene Hackman could grow that mustache again, he would have been twirling it, which is, I think, what Raimi wanted in this case. This is one of the most gleefully hissable roles, but he still manages to kind of force that humanity back into the third act, which I think is an impressive feat in its own right. But the sheer array of character actors they keep throwing us in this movie is just breathtaking.
Yeah, there's an amazing amount of people in this thing. Pat Hingle has, I think, 2 lines in the. he has like 5 or 6, but they're mostly just, "Hey, let's start the contest. Contest is over. Let's
do.
start the contest. Contest is over." Over and over again, and you got Pat Hingle to do that. That's awesome.
And at the
Why
same
not?
and at the same time, he had one of the most wonderful little details in the movie, which is after I guess Kevin Conway, I forget his character's name, has been messing with his
Eugene.
daughter.
Eugene.
Eugene comes down after messing with Hingle's daughter. He is standing in front of Hingle with his gun strapped to his back, and Hingle has that little moment of
Yeah.
Yeah. Goes to grab that
Reaching
gun.
out.
goes to grab it and then thinks better of it because he knows he's not going to be able to use it as effectively as the guy who he'd be taking it from. You know, bringing Stone in to do the repair on that situation. But yeah, no, just wonderful little character details for frickin' everybody. Absolute showboat performances by at least 3 of the main actors that somehow don't manage to take any of the sort of the screen power away from anyone surrounding them.
Yeah, it's just a fun movie to me. It's a movie that it doesn't try too hard. It's Sam Raimi having fun with the genre. It's like playing with dolls. It's action figures. Thank you.
I love how. It's fun how on the nose it purposely is. Sharon Stone's her character. 5 minutes into the movie, she walks past a giant sign that says "Redemption" in giant black letters. Or when it was revealed that Sharon Stone's still alive, the kid immediately pours the bottle of red ink. Like, oh hey, this is where it came from.
I have to say too, when we finally get Sharon Stone's background, that was heightened to such a degree.
Gary
It almost
She shot her
passed-
dad.
It almost
believe it.
passed into comedy at some point.
Oh,
there,
no,
at
no,
least for me.
I laughed when his head pops. I cracked up.
That
great.
moment
Couldn't
felt
believe
like a
it.
very deliberate riff on Charles Bronson's origin story in Once
Harmonica.
Upon a Time in the West. Yeah, exactly. It just taken to the to an even higher degree. But that's classical. This is a movie. I mean, it's a Raimi movie. Raimi likes wearing his influences, close to the surface, and he's never been shy about that. But in this case, that's absolutely one of the things that we kind of love about him. Making For the Love of the Game all the more freaking inexplicable.
Yeah.
I was really because I didn't know anything about this movie going in. I was really one of my first notes before the movie started was like, "Oh God, I hope this is better than For Love of the Game." Man,
that was his keep your head down and get a better job afterwards movie.
Well, this bombed, didn't it? It did not do well at the box office.
Not
There-
I'd seen it.
particularly.
I didn't remember until we started watching. I was like, oh, I've seen this. But
The 90s wave of westerns was definitely post-Crest after this. So no, it didn't do terribly well, but it's one of those things that, because westerns are a cult, same as everything else, I think has turned into a fairly legitimate cult classic, or at least that's my impression. I don't hang out with a lot of Western junkies a lot, but the few that I do know seem to like this one very much.
The gross worldwide, according to IMDb, the font of absolute truth, 18 million.
Yeah, not so great.
No.
Not
6
even, not
million
even by
opening
90.
weekend.
Not even by 95 standards.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it was pretty indifferently reviewed at the time as well.
For what is ostensibly a vanity project, and that's one of the things I like so much about it, is that it is a vanity project, that it is Sharon Stone picking these pieces and putting them together in a way to make her look amazing, and it's a world that she wants to explore and have fun in, and I think that's great. I wish that she had more chances to do that in her producing. I don't know that she's producing anything anymore. But
Yeah, she did an
I think
epic
she's pretty
job
good.
of that. I mean, if she was gonna do a vanity project, my God.
Yeah, I mean
Really?
the production on the film is absolutely faultless.
Yeah.
And like I say, you do a vanity project for a lead, and you surround yourself with this cast. Oh my goodness! You've got at least 4 of the greatest baritones on the planet in the same freaking movie. You have Gene Hackman in a scene staring down Keith David, and vice versa.
That's just such an
Yeah.
amazing scene.
Yeah.
And of course, bless them for letting Sam Raimi do the shot that actually took care of Keith David in this movie as well.
Yeah, which Amelia found to be hilarious.
It kind of is.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
it
too.
Kind
She
of
I
is.
was
cracked
just, it
up.
was
I don't
cartoony.
think I've ever seen a movie with this many holes through people that you could physically see through. There's at least 3 of them, maybe even more. And there's
Like-
her hat in the very first shot where you see her. You see the sun through the hole in her hat. Good stuff. I mean,
the
very-
Wile E. Coyote bullets.
Yeah.
I love that she shoots a bullet so hard at one point it makes a man flip.
Yes, that was ridiculous.
It's great.
It was extra accelerated through sheer fury.
It's the old canard about pushing your bullets. You fire the gun, you also shove the gun forward to make the bullets go faster.
and the kill shot on Gene Hackman, he can see the bullet coming soon enough that he's actually screaming that it's coming at his eye. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh no!" Or he doesn't say "Oh no," but the way the way it's framed, he's screaming because he knows he's like following the trajectory of the bullet somehow.
I mean,
fast.
as much as anything else, what astonishingly good sports everybody was in this movie as well. I mean,
I'm pretty sure everybody knew exactly what they were making. Every single person involved.
Yeah. As long as but I'm not sure that the audiences
this,
understood what they were making.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's where we got in
the
trouble.
advertising for this, I will freely allow as recalling from the time, felt completely generic as well.
Yeah.
It showed up very few of the trick shots. It made very little of Raimi's involvement in its own right. They were mostly pointing to Sharon Stone and Gene Hackman, and not much. A little bit of Russell Crowe, because I think even then they realized, he was in fact the next big thing at that point.
He was such a baby. He was so
He
young.
was so gorgeous.
It was before he had discovered Twinkies. It was just.
Oh,
I'm
come
sorry.
on now.
He's
Fat
living
Look,
his
Lady.
best life.
I have had more than a few Twinkies lately. I mean, it's been the pandemic, so I can
Fat Russell
talk.
Crowe is the Russell Crowe we want now. This is a good Russell Crowe. I've seen the nice guys.
I like him in everything. Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
nice guys.
Oh, the nice
Okay.
guys is so freaking great. So
you will
great.
don't start me now because I love that movie so much.
I really liked him in Les Mis because I think it's really adorable. An
I've never
adorable
seen it.
performance.
I thought he was
Well-
good at that too. I didn't mind his singing voice either. Everyone
Well,
criticized
that's the
his singing
thing.
voice. I thought it was
Well,
fine.
no, that's the thing about Crowe's voice in Les Mis is it's not good singing, but it's perfect for Javert.
yeah, it
It's
worked for me.
it's not how Russell Crowe would sing. Russell Crowe is perfectly capable of carrying a tune and singing competently. Javert is not.
Yeah, he's got a band.
It also has probably the best exit for Javert, which is entirely accurate to the book, but also horribly gruesome. Because in the book, he just topples off and into the cascades of water. In the film, he topples off into the cascades of water, head first hitting a brick on the way down.
Ah. How extra.
Yeah, basically.
Really? I
It
mean,
got my attention and woke me up about midway through the film.
The point is that Crowe guy was going places.
Yep. And it was how many years until Gladiator?
I think 6. This was 94.
99
yes.
is when Gladiator came out.
Yeah, 99.
2001.
2001.
See,
2000
really?
to 2001.
See, I thought it was only like maybe 2 or 3 years after that, but
2000.
No.
So yeah, 5 years.
shoot.
Wow.
Yeah, 95. He also did Virtuosity, which again a little bit of a cult classic, but not necessarily in the good way.
Yeah.
It was 97 with L.A. Confidential that he really started fucking shit up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember him coming out of that with everybody was talking about him. And we also get Baby DiCaprio.
Baby
Mhm.
DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Best. My vote for his for DiCaprio's best performance of his early pretty boy phase.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think of DiCaprio in. Let me see what year this was.
This was 2 years before Titanic, right? Titanic was 97.
Yeah, this was 2 years before Titanic. It's interesting to think of Russell Crowe and DiCaprio getting back together for Body of Lies in 2008, where DiCaprio is basically every bit the adult that Russell Crowe was. Yeah, no,
Well, he was kind of a baby in The Quick and the Dead. I mean, Crow was.
Yeah,
I mean,
Crow,
he
he
still
seemed very,
had like a
very
little
young.
bit of
He was sort
baby
kid
fat,
almost.
and today he was very, very youthful.
See,
But yeah,
I
no,
just finished watching DiCaprio in his introductory film, which was, of course, as we all know, Critters 3.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was Gilbert Grape,
No,
but
it was
okay.
Critters.
It was.
Critters
Okay.
3, yeah.
I'm not sure I saw that.
That it's
Crit-
not worth your
Critters.
time. But
Hey, don't
Oh,
disparage
Fun movie.
Critters.
I love those movies.
no, I love Critters. Critters 3, not so much.
They do get progressively worse.
I mean, of course, I remember him from Growing Pains, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
the
forgot about
the late season adopted waif. But I mean, this is further evidence that it's a very showy role, but DiCaprio is not kind of filtering a lot of individual ego into it. I know I keep coming back to this, but it's an almost egoless performance about a character with an enormous ego.
Mhm.
To the point
Especially
where
at his end there. I mean, you
Absolutely.
had to have a character. You had to have an actor who could go into it without any ego in order to have that sort of whimpering death he does.
exactly.
I
Like
didn't
say,
think he
it's-
had an ego at all. I mean, the character I thought he was just like putting on a show. You know, like
He was
you know,
a dude
don't
playing a dude
hurt me.
playing another
Here's my
dude.
armor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. This is the armor I'm putting up, so you can't hurt me.
No,
sort of
that's
thing.
that's
he
not.
was squishy in the middle, and I knew it from the minute I saw him.
It's not a bad take. No, but the point is, it's a splendid early performance by one of the. Like I say, I know he gets mistaken for a leading man, but again, one of the world's great character actors. And the first time that I noticed him or Crow, and I was really impressed by both of them on that first round. Granted, I never actually have seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape or This Boy's Life.
What?
Oh, this
What?
boy's life was very important to me. Very important film
I
to me.
don't think I even.
I haven't.
know
I
that.
don't think
I've
I've
seen that
seen
one.
it.
Oh God, it's amazing. It's so.
Now, what's
Was that
eating
the one with
Gilbert
De Niro?
Grape was
Yeah,
was
that's the
eating
one with
Gilbert
De
Oh,
Niro.
I have
Grape
seen
too.
that. It's
So.
been a long time.
So good.
Jenner, you haven't seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
No, I have not seen What's Eating Gilbert.
Oh my! That was like a big deal to me when it came out. I watched it a lot.
I like horror movies, horror and science fiction movies. Anything else that comes in, great. It's stuff that happens.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, Johnny Depp and
So
my
I'm
God,
told.
my
So,
God.
so I'm told.
The story was so good.
It is not a slight on the film that I haven't seen it. I just haven't seen it. The point is that DiCaprio kid was going places, and I knew it then.
right there in Critters 3.
Critters 3, yep.
Never seen Critters 3.
That don't ruin my fantasy.
It's better than Critters 4. I'll say that.
That is true.
Oh,
no, is it?
Oh, come
Yeah.
on, 4 had Brad
Shoot.
Dourif.
Critters
Oh.
4 looked like it was gonna be great. I've only seen 1 through 3. I was building up to 4.
I mean, granted,
4 doesn't have
granted,
enough critters in it.
I mean, granted, if it's one of those things where they finally get to the in space installment, but strictly speaking, it was a space-based franchise just taking place on Earth in the first place. That's a little, that's
Like Leprechaun. But
Well, okay, Leprechaun peaked with installment 4. Right? Let us be very clear on that point.
You know,
me
that's
back me gold.
that's the one horror franchise I have never seen.
really, that's
the
one of the
only
ones
one
I'd
worth-
actually seen.
The only one worth watching is 4 in space.
Okay.
2 has moments. 1 is
So-
terrible.
Give me back me gold.
Anyway,
Well, The Quick and the Dead. It's
Great fun, especially
Yeah,
on
it's
the
a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Yeah.
It is worth the hour and 45 minutes. I mean, absolutely,
What-
more better than that. That's
Still
just
really
a great way
curious
to
about the
spend
apparently
that
20
time.
or so more minutes, of which we actually get glimpses in the trailer, but
Apparently
They-
there was a sex scene in there that was cut out.
yeah.
including
Between
a,
who and who?
between Sharon Stone and
Sharon
Russell
Stone,
Crowe,
yeah.
a clip of
Yeah.
which appears in the trailer.
You can find,
Shit.
or at least last I checked, you can find some of these on YouTube. Because I've
Okay,
seen,
then.
I saw the sex scene and I saw the Bruce Campbell scene.
Oh,
Is the Bruce Campbell scene good? Is it worth looking up?
No, he's just he's a background player, basically.
He's the wedding shemp.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
I don't know.
Well,
it was in the
you know
credits.
the town that Gary Sinise is in, the past town, he's there.
Yeah.
There's a wedding going
Oh.
on there.
Oh, we
okay.
didn't look in the right place. We were looking around Leonardo DiCaprio's bride and all of the people in that audience.
Faye Masterson, terrific character actress,
Yeah.
making a lot of a role with, as far as I know, basically no lines.
Well, a little bit. but
she's just kind of there to fawn on Leo DiCaprio, and realistically, why wouldn't she? But she makes an impression. Again, so many amazing character players in this.
Oh, but the sex scene
Yeah.
didn't work. Did not
Oh,
work.
oh.
Not at all.
Okay.
It
Because
kind of,
it would involve Sharon Stone having sex with someone other than Sharon. No, anyway.
See, and I was thinking it was more like well, she got what she paid. But anyway, that's me.
Oh. Unbelievable.
Sorry.
Moving along.
Sorry.
Moving along.
I'm
Well-
just gonna leave now. Bye,
why
y'all.
don't we call it for the night then?
Thank you.
That's going to do it for us here on What's on the Pile. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile. You can find us on YouTube under the Punch Bunny YouTube channel, or you can visit our website, whatsonthepile.com. Thanks for hanging out. Quick and the Undead.
Oh, wow.